The Pacific breeze carried the scent of salt and champagne through the outdoor reception at the Ocean View Grand Resort. I smoothed down my simple navy dress, the same one I'd worn to 3 other family weddings, and watched my brother Marcus adjust his bow tie for the 100th time. His bride Jennifer looked radiant in her custom gown that cost more than I made in 6 months at the hardware store. At least that's what everyone thought I made. "Sarah, you're at table 12, my mother announced, not looking up from her seating chart. With the distant cousins, not with immediate family, not at the head table where my other siblings sat. Table 12, near the kitchen doors, where the music was loudest and the view was worst." "That's fine, Mom," I said quietly. She finally glanced at me, her eyes scanning my department store dress with barely concealed disappointment. "I wish you'd let me buy you something nicer." "The photos, I'm comfortable." My sister Amanda snorted from behind her champagne glass. Comfortable, that's one way to describe it. She wore a designer dress that probably cost $3,000, her jewelry glittering in the sunset light. I'd bought her that jewelry. She didn't know that. The ceremony had been beautiful. Marcus looked genuinely happy, and Jennifer seemed lovely. I'd sat in the back row, smiling through their vows, genuinely hoping they'd beat the odds. When the photographer called for family photos, my mother had gently suggested I sit this batch out, since my dress didn't match the wedding colors. I'd sat on a bench overlooking the ocean, checking emails on my 3-year-old phone while my family posed in their coordinated elegance. Now, as cocktail hour transitioned into dinner, I made my way to table 12. The distant cousins were kind enough. Aunt Linda's kids from her second marriage, people I saw once every few years. They made polite conversation about my job at Martinez Hardware. "Still working there?" my cousin Dylan asked. "That's nice. Stable?" "Very stable," I agreed, sipping water while everyone else ordered top-shelf cocktails. The truth was, I'd bought Martinez Hardware 4 years ago, when old Mr. Martinez wanted to retire. I'd kept the name, kept working the floor, kept wearing my employee vest. I liked the simplicity. I liked helping people find the right screws for their projects, explaining the difference between paint finishes, teaching kids how to properly use a tape measure. What I didn't like was how my family had treated me since I'd chosen that path. "Sarah's always been the simple one," my mother had told her book club friends once, not knowing I was in the next room. "Not ambitious like Amanda or Marcus. Some people are just content with less." I'd built a portfolio of 17 properties along the coast, transformed a failing hardware store into a profitable business, and invested carefully in commercial real estate while living in a modest apartment above the store. But because I didn't drive a luxury car or wear designer labels, I was content with less. Dinner was served, filet mignon and lobster tail, Marcus and Jennifer's expensive taste on full display. My father stood to give a toast, his face already flushed from whiskey. "To my son Marcus," he began, his voice carrying across the reception, "who's always known what he wanted and had the drive to get it. Unlike some people," his eyes flickered toward my table, "Marcus understands that success requires ambition." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. I cut my steak into small pieces and chewed slowly. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chen, my property manager. "Thompson issue resolved. Court date set for November 15th. All documentation ready." I typed back quickly. "Thanks, enjoy your weekend." Another buzz. This one from Patricia Reeves, my real estate attorney. Reminder: coastal development final approval Monday. Press release draft attached. I'd spent 3 years acquiring properties along this stretch of beach. The Ocean View Grand Resort where we were currently celebrating. I'd bought it 8 months ago. The previous owners had wanted to retire to Arizona, and I'd given them a fair price, plus a percentage of future profits. Nobody knew except my legal team, the management company, and the previous owners who'd signed NDAs until the public announcement. The resort manager, James Wheeler, had been nervous about keeping it quiet. "Your family doesn't know," he'd asked during our first meeting. "They don't ask about my life," I'd said simply, "and I don't volunteer information." Now James was stationed near the bar, maintaining his professional distance. We'd agreed he'd make himself scarce during family events. No special treatment, no acknowledgement beyond normal guest services. The meal continued. My siblings laughed loudly at the head table, their designer clothes and confident postures marking them as the successful Martinez children. Amanda worked in pharmaceutical sales, drove a BMW, and lived in a downtown penthouse she could barely afford. Marcus managed a hedge fund, wore custom suits, and employed a personal assistant to manage his calendar. Both of them were drowning in debt. I knew because both of them had asked me for loans over the years. Small amounts, a few hundred here and there, always with promises to pay back that never materialized. They thought I was scraping together my hardware store wages to help family. In reality, I'd been documenting every transaction, not because I planned to demand repayment, but because I'd learned early that family could be cruel to those they perceived as weak. Dessert arrived, a 7-tier cake decorated with sugar flowers that probably cost more than my monthly rent. As the servers distributed slices, my father stood again. He'd had several more whiskeys, his movements less steady now. Another announcement, he declared, and the room quieted, a surprise for the happy couple. My mother smiled indulgently. Amanda and my younger brother David leaned forward with interest. Jennifer, Marcus, your mother and I have been discussing your future, Dad continued. Young couples need stability, a foundation to build on. Marcus grinned. Dad, you don't have to, we want to give you Sarah's beach house. Dad interrupted, his voice loud and certain. That little shack she's been squatting in down on Pelican Point. It's wasted on someone with no ambition, no family of her own. You two can renovate it, turn it into something worthwhile. The room went silent. 200 faces turned toward the head table. My mother was nodding, Amanda clapping slowly, David raising his glass. My hand stayed steady on my fork. I took another bite of cake. Raspberry filling, buttercream frosting. Quite good, actually. Mom and I already consulted with a realtor. Dad continued, warming to his announcement. That little property, even run down as it is, could sell for maybe $400,000. We'll split the proceeds. Marcus and Jennifer get half to renovate or buy something better, and we'll divide the rest among the other siblings. It's time Sarah learned she can't just hoard resources when family needs them. My mother stood now. We've already contacted a contractor. Sarah's been selfish, living alone in that beach shack when it could benefit the whole family. This is what family does. We share. Amanda's voice rang out. Finally, I've been saying for years that Sarah doesn't appreciate what she has. That property is wasted on someone who works retail. Applause scattered through the room. Some guests looked uncomfortable, but many were nodding. The Martinez family, taking care of their own, redistributing resources from the undeserving daughter to the successful son. I set down my fork and pulled out my phone, opened my property management app, scrolled through the listings, 17 properties, all documented, all legally mine. My cousin Dylan whispered, Sarah, are you okay? I'm fine, I said quietly, just checking something. Dad wasn't finished. We've been enabling Sarah's lack of ambition for too long. She's 32 years old, working at a hardware store, living in that tiny shack like some kind of beach bum. Marcus and Jennifer represent the future of this family, successful, driven, building something real. More applause. Marcus looked slightly uncomfortable now, but Jennifer was smiling, already imagining renovations. The paperwork will be ready next week, Mom added. Sarah, honey, you'll need to sign some documents. Our lawyer has them prepared. You'll have to move out by the end of the month, but don't worry. Amanda has offered to let you rent her spare bedroom until you find somewhere affordable. Amanda nodded magnanimously. $600 a month, utilities included. That's very reasonable for downtown. $600 a month for a 10 by 10 spare bedroom in the penthouse apartment I'd helped her buy when she was 3 months behind on rent. I checked my phone again. James Wheeler had positioned himself near the sound system, waiting. We'd planned for contingencies, though I hadn't expected this particular scenario. Any questions, Sarah? Dad asked, his tone making it clear. Questions weren't actually welcome. I stood slowly. Table 12 went quiet. Then table 11. The silence spread like ripples across the reception. Just one question, Dad, I said, my voice calm and clear. When you say my beach shack on Pelican Point, which property specifically are you referring to? He laughed, the whiskey making him confident. Don't play games. The little place you've been hiding in for the past 6 years. The one you're too embarrassed to invite anyone to, because it's basically a glorified shed. The two-bedroom cottage at 247 Pelican Point Drive. That's the one. He spread his arms wide, playing to the crowd, worth maybe 400,000 if we're lucky. Needs complete renovation. Probably has mold, definitely has structural issues. Actually, I interrupted gently. That property is worth approximately 1.2 million in current market conditions. It's a fully renovated 1,800 square foot cottage with 3 bedrooms, not 2, and it was professionally restored in 2021. No mold, no structural issues. I have the inspection reports if you'd like to see them. Dad's smile faltered. You don't know what you're talking about. We had it appraised. By whom? Silence. Because I had it professionally appraised 6 months ago when I refinanced. The documents are public record. I pulled up the file on my phone. Would you like me to send you the link? My mother's face had gone pale. Sarah, what are you? But that's actually not the important part, I continued. My heart was beating fast, but my voice stayed level. Years of quiet observation, of being dismissed and overlooked, had taught me perfect emotional control. The important part is ownership. I looked at James Wheeler. He straightened, understanding the signal. Dad, you said you've already contacted contractors and realtors about selling my property. My question is, how were you planning to sell a house you don't own? It's family property, Dad blustered. Your grandmother left it to me, specifically, in her will. I have the deed, the title transfer documents, and the tax records going back 6 years. I held up my phone. Every payment, every renovation, every insurance premium, all in my name. Sarah Martinez, sole owner. The reception had gone completely silent. Even the ocean seemed to have quieted. Marcus stood. Sarah, look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There has been, I agreed, but not on my part. I nodded to James again. He moved to the microphone at the DJ booth. Dad, Mom, before your lawyer prepares any more documents, there's something you should know. I kept my voice gentle, almost apologetic. The cottage at Pelican Point is just one property I own. I've been investing in real estate for the past 8 years. Investing, Amanda laughed sharply, on a hardware store salary. I don't just work at a hardware store, I said. I own it. I bought Martinez hardware from Mr. Martinez in 2020. He wanted to retire, and I made him a fair offer. We kept it quiet because he didn't want his competitors to know he was selling. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You don't have that kind of money. I do actually. From grandmother's life insurance policy, the one she left specifically to me, because she knew I'd invest it wisely, rather than spend it on cars and clothes. I glanced at Amanda's designer dress. She was right. James Wheeler cleared his throat at the microphone. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the interruption, but there's been a significant misunderstanding tonight that needs clarification. Every head turned toward him. My name is James Wheeler. I'm the general manager of the Ocean View Grand Resort. He paused, looking at me. I nodded. I want to address Mr. Martinez's announcement about property sales and divisions. Dad found his voice. This is a private family matter. It became a public matter when you made announcements about property you don't own, James said firmly. Sir, the property at 247 Pelican Point Drive is owned solely by Miss Sarah Martinez. It's one of 17 coastal properties she owns through Martinez Property Holdings, LLC. The silence was absolute. 17. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. James continued, reading from a document on his tablet. Miss Martinez has spent the past 8 years building a portfolio of residential and commercial properties along the California coast. Her holdings include retail spaces, residential rentals, and, he paused, looking directly at my father, the Ocean View Grand Resort, which she acquired 8 months ago. The champagne glass slipped from Amanda's hand, shattering on the floor. This resort, Dad said slowly. You're saying Sarah owns this resort? As of March 15th of this year, yes. Miss Martinez purchased it from the Henderson family for an undisclosed sum. She's been the owner throughout your entire wedding planning process. Marcus and Jennifer were on their feet now. Jennifer's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. The venue fee you paid, James continued, went to Miss Martinez's property management company. The catering, the room blocks, the ceremony space, all part of the resort she owns. Why didn't you tell us? Mom's voice cracked. You never asked, I said simply. In 8 years, no one in this family has ever asked about my work beyond whether I was still at that hardware store. No one asked about my investments, my business plans, or my goals. You assumed I was poor because I wore simple clothes and drove an old car. I gestured to my navy dress. This cost $40 at Target. I like it. It's comfortable. I don't need designer labels to feel valuable. David, who'd been silent throughout, spoke up. Sarah, I don't understand. If you own all this, why live above a hardware store? Because I like it, I said. I like the simplicity. I like being close to my business. I like not wasting money on things that don't matter to me. I looked at Amanda. Unlike some people who live in penthouses they can't afford and drive cars that cost more than their annual salary, Amanda's face went white. I know about the debt, I said quietly. Both of you. I glanced at Marcus. The credit cards, the personal loans, the mortgage you're underwater on. I know because you've both asked me for money over the years. Small amounts that you thought I could barely spare. I pulled up my banking app. Every loan is documented. Amanda, you've borrowed $8,400 over the past 3 years. Marcus, $6,200. I never asked for repayment because you're family. But I kept records because I learned early that family doesn't always have your best interests at heart. Dad slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly. She can, sir. A new voice. A woman in a business suit had entered the reception area. Mr. Martinez, I'm Patricia Reeves, Miss Martinez real estate attorney. I have documentation of every property, every transaction, and every loan if you'd like to see them. She set a briefcase on the nearest table, pulling out file folders. The cottage at Pelican Point, purchased outright in 2019. Martinez Hardware, acquired in 2020. The Sandpiper Apartments, the Coral Bay Shopping Center, the Lighthouse Restaurant. Enough. My mother's voice was sharp. We understand. I'm not certain you do, Patricia continued calmly. Because your announcement tonight about selling Miss Martinez's property constitutes attempted fraud. You contacted contractors and realtors about property you have no legal claim to. You announced intention to forge documents and force a sale. The color drained from Dad's face. Now Miss Martinez has assured me she doesn't wish to press charges. Patricia said, she considers this a family misunderstanding. However, any further attempts to claim ownership of her properties will result in immediate legal action. She handed a business card to my father. My contact information, should you need clarification on any legal matters. Another person approached, a man in his 50s wearing a resort uniform. Miss Martinez, I apologize for interrupting, but we have a scheduling conflict that needs your approval. It was Thomas Morrison, the resort's events coordinator. We'd planned this too. What kind of conflict, Thomas? The Harrison wedding next Saturday has requested the same ceremony space as the Chen anniversary party. Both are willing to pay premium rates. Which event should take priority? Every eye in the reception was on me. The anniversary party booked first, I said. Give them the prime space. Offer the Harrisons the Sunset Terrace with a 10% discount for the inconvenience. Very good, Miss Martinez. Thomas nodded and left. The reality was settling over my family like fog. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't an exaggeration. Their daughter's sister, the one they dismissed and belittled, owned the resort where they were celebrating, owned properties up and down the coast, had built an empire while they were busy feeling superior about their designer clothes and expensive cars. Jennifer spoke for the first time. The wedding venue fee, that money went to you, to my property management company. Yes. The $10,000 deposit was deposited in the resort's operating account, which I own. Yes. Marcus sat down heavily. Sarah, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied. Enjoy your wedding. Enjoy the reception. The food is excellent, the band is talented, and the ocean view is spectacular. I made sure of it when I renovated the space last year. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Why didn't you tell us? Because you taught me not to, I said gently. Every time I tried to share good news, you diminished it. When I got promoted at the hardware store, you asked when I'd get a real job. When I bought my first rental property, you asked if I was sure I could handle the responsibility. When I won the Chamber of Commerce Award for Small Business Owner, you didn't come to the ceremony because Amanda had a sales presentation. I looked at each of them. You taught me that my achievements didn't matter to you, so I stopped sharing them. Amanda found her voice. The loans you gave me were gifts, I said. I never expected repayment, but I'm done giving money to people who think I'm too stupid to succeed.
Ugh.
We never said that, Dad protested. You said it tonight, in front of 200 people. You called me unambitious, selfish, a beach bum. You announced plans to steal my property because you thought I didn't deserve it. My voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. You thought I was weak because I'm quiet. You thought I was poor because I don't flaunt wealth. You were wrong on both counts. James Wheeler spoke up again. Miss Martinez, shall I proceed with the planned announcement? I hesitated. This was the nuclear option, the one Patricia had advised against. But I was tired. Tired of being dismissed, tired of being the family joke, tired of watching them celebrate their perceived superiority while drowning in debt they'd accrued trying to impress each other. Proceed, I said. James returned to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I have one more announcement. The Martinez Property Holdings Company has been planning a major coastal development project. On Monday we'll be announcing the Pacific Shores Initiative, a sustainable development combining residential, commercial and public spaces along 17 miles of coastline. He paused, letting that sink in. This development includes the properties many of you see daily. The Coral Bay Shopping Center, the Lighthouse Restaurant, the Sandpiper Apartments. And yes, this resort, Miss Martinez has spent 8 years quietly acquiring properties, planning improvements, and working with environmental groups to create something unprecedented on this coast. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some guests were pulling out phones, already searching for information. The total project value, James continued, is estimated at $47 million. Miss Martinez is the primary investor and majority owner. Dad made a choking sound. The development will create approximately 200 new jobs, preserve 14 acres of coastal habitat, and include affordable housing units for service workers and families. It's been approved by the Coastal Commission and will break ground in January. He looked at me. Miss Martinez has chosen to make tonight's announcement in honor of her brother's wedding, sharing her success with family first before the public press release on Monday. It wasn't quite true. I'd planned to announce it Monday regardless, but it sounded good. The reception had erupted in whispers. Guests were staring at me with new eyes. The quiet woman in the cheap dress who'd been seated with distant cousins was suddenly the most important person in the room. Patricia approached my parents' table. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, I need to discuss something with you privately. It concerns the rental properties you currently occupy. Dad's head snapped up. What? The townhouse at 4850 Bayside Drive. You've been renting it for 3 years from Coastal Properties Management. That company is owned by Martinez Property Holdings. My mother grabbed the table for support. I'm your landlord, I said quietly. I have been for 3 years. I bought the building when the previous owners wanted to sell. I kept your rent below market rate because your family. Amanda's voice was barely audible. The penthouse, Lighthouse Tower, Unit 2401. I own the building. Your rent is $2,800 per month, but market rate for that unit is $4,200. I've been subsidizing $1,400 monthly because you're my sister. I pulled out my phone, showing them the property management spreadsheet. Marcus, you rent a house in Glenwood. I own that too. Bought it 2 years ago. I charge you $3,000 monthly. Market rate is $4,800. The numbers were there in black and white. While they'd been mocking my simple lifestyle, I'd been quietly supporting theirs. David, I continued, looking at my youngest brother, you're the only one who doesn't rent from me. You bought your condo outright with money from your tech startup. I respect that. David nodded slowly. Is that why you never criticized my career choices? I never criticized anyone's career choices. I criticized being in debt to maintain appearances. Patricia cleared her throat. Which brings us to the current situation. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, your announcement tonight about selling Miss Martinez's property puts us in a difficult position. Your lease includes a clause prohibiting tenants from making false claims about property ownership or attempting to conduct fraudulent transactions involving the landlord's assets. Dad's face went ashen. You can't evict us over this. I can, I said. The lease is clear. But I won't. You're my parents, and despite everything, I still love you. But things are going to change. I stood, walking closer to their table. The entire reception watched in silence. First, the below-market rent ends. Starting next month, you'll pay market rate or find somewhere else to live. Second, no more loans. No more bailouts when you overspend trying to impress your friends. Third, you will never again speak about me or my choices with disrespect. My mother was sobbing openly now. Sarah, please. I'm not trying to hurt you, I said, and I meant it. I'm trying to teach you what you should have taught me. That worth isn't measured by designer labels or expensive cars. That quiet strength is still strength. That underestimating people is a mistake. I turned to Marcus. Your wedding gift from me is 6 months of market rate rent paid in advance. After that, you're on your own. Use the time to get your finances in order. He nodded, unable to speak. To Amanda. Same offer, 6 months prepaid. Find a financial advisor. Cut up the credit cards. Learn to live within your means. She was crying too, her perfect makeup ruined. David, since you're financially responsible, I'm making you a different offer. There's an opening for a property manager in my company. Salary is $85,000 plus benefits. If you're interested, email Patricia. David's eyes widened. Sarah, I don't know what to say. Say yes or no on Monday. For now, enjoy the wedding. I looked at my parents one final time. I became successful, not despite your dismissal, but because of it. You taught me to be self-reliant, to trust my own judgment, to not need validation from people who don't respect me. Thank you for that lesson. The DJ, sensing the tension, started music again. Something soft and neutral. Conversations slowly resumed. Though everyone kept glancing toward our tables, James Wheeler approached. Miss Martinez, the photographer is asking if you'd like to be included in the family photos now. I looked at my family, shocked, crying, pale. My mother clutched my father's hand. Amanda stared at her lap. Marcus held Jennifer, who looked overwhelmed. David met my eyes with something like admiration. No, I said quietly. I don't think so, but thank you for asking. I returned to table 12, where my distant cousins sat in stunned. Dylan finally spoke. Sarah, that was the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. It was just honesty, I said. I'm tired of hiding. My phone buzzed. Patricia, press release ready for Monday approval. Also, your mother wants to speak privately. Your call. I typed back. Not tonight, maybe next week. The reception continued. Marcus and Jennifer cut their cake, shared their first dance, posed for endless photos. My family slowly recovered their composure, though they kept glancing my way with expressions I couldn't quite read. Fear, respect, maybe resentment. Around 10 p.m., as the party was winding down, David approached my table. Sarah, can we talk? Of course. We walked to the resort's edge, overlooking the dark ocean. Waves crashed against the rocks below, rhythmic and eternal. I'm sorry, he said, for not defending you, for going along with their bullshit, for not asking about your life. You're young, I said. You get a pass. I'm 26. That's old enough to know better. He paused. The job offer, is it real? Completely real. I need someone I can trust, and family loyalty runs deep, even when it shouldn't. I'll take it. I'll email Patricia tomorrow. Monday is fine. Spend tomorrow recovering from tonight. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. We'll all be recovering from tonight for a long time. He looked at me seriously. Did you plan this? The whole reveal? Not exactly. I planned to announce the development on Monday. I didn't plan for Dad to announce stealing my property at your brother's wedding. I shrugged. But once he did, I had to respond. You could have responded privately. I could have. But he made it public. He tried to humiliate me in front of 200 people. Turnabout seemed fair. David nodded slowly. It was more than fair. It was merciful. You could have destroyed them. They're still my family. Are they, after tonight? I considered that. Family is complicated. They hurt me, but I don't think they meant to be cruel. They genuinely believed I was failing, that they were superior. Sometimes the worst harm comes from people who think they're helping. That's generous. No, it's realistic. Holding grudges is exhausting. I'd rather build things than tear people down. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the ocean. The development, David said. It's really $47 million. $52 million, actually. James rounded down. I didn't correct him. David whistled. How did you do it? On a hardware store salary. I didn't start with a hardware store salary. I started with grandmother's life insurance. $200,000. I invested carefully. Bought my first rental property in a depressed market. Fixed it up myself. Rented it out. Used that income to buy another. Worked 3 jobs for 5 years. Saved everything. Reinvested constantly. 3 jobs. Hardware store, property maintenance, and weekend accounting for small businesses. I slept 4 hours a night for years. I smiled. But I enjoyed it. Building something from nothing. That's satisfying in a way designer handbags never could be. And grandmother knew that you'd invest it wisely. She knew I was different from the others. She used to tell me, Sarah, quiet water runs deep. I think she understood that just because I didn't flaunt ambition, didn't mean I lacked it. David pulled out his phone. I'm texting Patricia now. I want that job. It's late, I know, but I want her to see first thing Monday that I'm serious. He typed quickly, then showed me. Miss Reeves, this is David Martinez. I'm accepting Sarah's job offer. When can I start? I smiled. You really do want this. I want to learn from someone who built something real, he said, not someone who's drowning in debt trying to maintain an image. His phone buzzed. Patricia's response. Excellent. Monday 9 a.m. My office. Bring resume and references. She works weekends, David asked. Major development announcements require weekend prep. She's probably been working since noon. We walked back toward the reception. Most guests had left. My parents sat with Marcus and Jennifer at a table near the exit, their faces exhausted. Amanda had disappeared entirely. My mother saw me and stood. For a moment we looked at each other across the empty dance floor. Then she walked toward me. Sarah, she said quietly, can we talk? Not tonight, but soon. Next week, I said, when everyone's had time to process. Will you? She paused, struggling. Will you forgive us? Eventually, but forgiveness takes time, and rebuilding trust takes longer. She nodded, tears spilling over again. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. You should have. I agreed. But you're saying it now. That matters. Dad approached, his earlier confidence completely gone. Sarah, I was drunk. I didn't mean you meant it. I interrupted gently. You've been thinking it for years. Alcohol just gave you permission to say it out loud. He flinched but didn't deny it. The question is whether you'll change your thinking or just hide it better. I continued. That's something you'll have to decide. I left them there, walking back to where James Wheeler stood near the entrance. Eventful evening, he said dryly. That's one word for it. For what it's worth, you handled it with remarkable grace. Most people in your position would have been far less kind. Kindness costs nothing, I said. And cruelty, even justified cruelty, damages the person doing it. Wise words. He handed me a folder. Tomorrow's event schedule and the final numbers from tonight. Your brother's wedding came in at $73,000 total. Send the standard thank you package to their hotel room tomorrow. Champagne, chocolate, spa vouchers. Already arranged. He paused. Miss Martinez, if I may ask a personal question. Go ahead. Was it worth it? Hiding your success for so long. I considered that. I wasn't hiding it. I was living authentically. The fact that my family didn't ask questions says more about them than me. But yes, it was worth it. I built something real, something sustainable. I didn't build it for approval or recognition. I built it because I could. And now, after tonight, now everyone knows. The development goes public Monday, and I can't hide anymore even if I wanted to. I smiled. But that's okay. I'm ready. The press will be intense. We should schedule media training. Patricia already has someone lined up for Tuesday. James nodded approvingly. You've thought of everything. I've had 8 years to plan. I left the resort at midnight, driving my 10-year-old Honda back to my apartment above the hardware store. The contrast wasn't lost on me. From a $52 million development announcement to a modest 2-bedroom apartment with furniture from thrift stores. But as I unlocked my door and stepped into my simple, comfortable space, I felt no desire for anything different. The apartment was paid for. The furniture was mine, bought with money I'd earned. The life I'd built was authentic. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Marcus. Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything you deserved better from us. I typed back. Focus on your marriage. Build something real with Jennifer. Learn from tonight. His response came quickly. I will. Thank you for the 6 months. We won't waste it. I set my phone down and made tea. Standing at my window overlooking Main Street, the hardware store's sign glowed softly below. Martinez Hardware, established 1987, under new ownership since 2020. Tomorrow customers would come in for paint and screws and gardening supplies. I'd help them wearing my employee vest, offering advice on projects. They'd have no idea that the woman mixing their paint colors owned 17 properties and was about to announce a $52 million development. And that was fine. Because worth isn't about what others know. It's about what you build, who you help, and whether you can look at yourself honestly in the mirror. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. A woman in a $40 navy dress, makeup free, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. A woman who'd taken $200,000 and turned it into an empire. A woman who'd endured years of dismissal and emerged stronger. A woman who chose authenticity over appearances, substance over style. I smiled at my reflection. Tomorrow everything would change. The press release would go out. The media would call. My family would have to reconcile their perception with reality. But tonight I was just Sarah Martinez, hardware store owner, apartment dweller, quiet woman who'd built something extraordinary, while everyone was looking the other way. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.